हरे कृष्ण। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। वागीशायस्य वदने लक्ष्मीर्यस्य च वक्षसि यस्यास्ते हृदये संवित् तं नृसिंहमहं भजे। एकेन चक्रमपरेण करेण शङ्खम् अन्येन सिन्धुतनयामवलम्ब्य तिष्ठन् वामेतरेण वरदाभयपद्मचिह्नम् लक्ष्मी नृसिंहमम देहि करावलम्बम्। उग्रं वीरं महाविष्णुं ज्वलन्तं सर्वतोमुखं नृसिंहं भीषणं भद्रं मृत्योर्मृत्युं नमाम्यहम्। प्रह्लाद नारद पराशर पुण्डरीका व्यासादिभागवत पुङ्गवहृन्निवास भक्तानुरक्त परिपालन पारिजात लक्ष्मी नृसिंह मम देहि करावलम्बम्. So we are discussing the last chapter of the Canto 7, chapter 15, entitled Instructions for the Civilized Human Beings as part of Varnashrama Dharma. In that we were discussing Ashrama Dharma. We are in the final step of understanding the occupational duties. After describing the various ritualistic ceremonies prescribed for the attached householders and how gradual elevation happens through detachment to the stage of Vanaprastha, understanding the body and the soul with the analogy of the chariot and the arrows, the bow, and so forth, and then gradual elevation of one's consciousness to the transcendence through the process of Devayana. This is what we have discussed so far, and in course of that we have stressed upon what is the importance of surrendering to a bona fide spiritual master and surrendering unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord as instructed by the spiritual master. So we have discussed, and also we have discussed what are all the possible obstacles on this path and how one has to guard oneself from falling prey to adharma, and what are the different kinds of adharmas which could possibly exist, and how one can transcend and step over of all these obstacles with the mercy of Guru, taking full shelter of him, and then through him taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, who is in everything of this entire creation. So we have discussed that till now, and then we are stepping into the next section of this chapter, where the summary of the occupational duties which were discussed so far by Narada Muni to Yudhishthira Maharaj are described, and Narada Muni describes his own previous life as an example of how potent the devotional service is, and by taking shelter of the Supreme Lord, by coming in contact with the devotees of the Supreme Lord, even though one may happens to fall down during the execution of one's prescribed duties or in any position of life, the mercy of the spiritual master can actually prove to be a very great guiding force and also a saver, lifesaver for a practitioner of bhakti. So to demonstrate that he himself talks about his previous life, and then Narada Muni glorifies the Pandavas for having the Supreme Personality of Godhead as their everything, as their friend, their guide, their guru, and their servant, their chariot driver, and so Lord served the Pandavas in many ways. So they are actually very fortunate to have the direct association of the Supreme Lord. So then where is the cause of danger of or misfortune for them? So there is no cause. So he glorifies the Pandavas, and then Sukadeva Goswami concludes the narration. Yudhishthir reacts gratefully for that, and Sukadeva Goswami concludes. This is what we are going to go and describe today. So we discussed this, how chapter 14 discusses the importance of a Brahmana. We actually described starting from different grades of Brahmanas, and of those Brahmanas who are attached householders, and then there are detached people of that householders who are called Vanaprasthas, and then there are a section of society who will dedicate completely their activities unto the service of the spiritual master and the Supreme Lord. They are called Brahmanas and Sannyasis. The Brahmanas will actually graduate into Sannyasis, and also the householders will graduate to Vanaprasthas and then Sannyasis. So this is being described, and we will quickly go through the to the section which we are going to discuss today. So yesterday we have discussed the analogy of we have discussed till Devayana, right? And then can someone confirm? Yesterday we have discussed till Devayana,
We
right?
should start from verse 58, Prabhuji.
58.
Verse number 58.
Yes. So we have discussed about how this is a gradual process of elevation. So one should be detached from the material bodily concept of life, and even though when one gets detached, even though he is situated in the material body, that means the soul who is situated in the material body, when one is fully aware of the paths known as Pitrayana and Devayana, which were described previously, he opens his eyes to Vedic knowledge, and then even while existing in this world, he will not be illusioned. Okay, so he will not fall prey for the bewilderments which come in this world. This we have described. And then, so how to understand, how to not fall prey to that bewilderment is to actually connect everything to the Supreme Lord. So Narada Muni is telling that in the beginning and the end, inside and outside of the universe also, and through knowledge and through the object of knowledge, to the words, through the words and the object of the words, means the description, and through darkness and through illusion, everything is the Supreme Lord. The darkness and light. So everything is the Supreme Lord in this material world. There is nothing in this world which exists separate from the Supreme Lord. So that is what is being described. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. He is the cause of all causes, and Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahman. He is the basis of the Brahman. So this world is full of Brahman, and that Brahman is the supreme absolute truth, that is the supreme personality of Godhead, that is Lord Sri Krishna. So if one connects everything to the Supreme Lord, that is actually the meaning of this material existence. It has any meaning. And then we are stepping into the next section. Here Narada Muni is describing about describing further of this vision of the Supreme Lord. Abaditopi hyabhaso yatha vastutaya smritaha durghatavat दुर्घटात्वत् ऐन्द्रियाकं तद्वद् विकल्पितम् आबाधितोऽपि ह्याभासो यथा वस्तुतया स्मृतः दुर्घटत्वात् ऐन्द्रियकं तद्वद् अर्थविकल्पितम्. So, saying although one may consider the reflection of the sun from a mirror to be a false, it has a factual existence. So, similarly or accordingly, to prove by speculative knowledge that there is no reality would be extremely difficult. So this analogy was given to say that something of this world does not belong to the Supreme Lord or is disconnected from the Supreme Lord is not proper, and to prove that would be difficult. So here, to prove that principle, he is giving an analogy. Now we may see a sun in the mirror, and the reflection of the sun in the mirror will reflect as a sunlight on the ground. Now, if there is no sun, then there is no reflection. So we accept the reflection but not the sun, so that is not proper. So if someone accepts the reflection, if someone accepts that this material world is true and the Supreme Lord is false, that is not proper. We accept this world in which we are living as tangible and not the source of this world, the Supreme Lord, to be intangible is not proper. So the Lord is the cause and the world is the effect. So just because we see things here temporary, that does not mean that there is no something substantial in the spiritual realm. So the substantiality of the spiritual world is a fact, and the insubstantiality of this world is also a factor. So this is explained by the analogy of the sun and the reflection. The reflection depends upon the original object, that is the sun. However, in absence of the original object, there is absence of reflection also. So on the corollary, in the presence of the reflection, the presence of the real object, the original object, the sun, is also guaranteed, is also confirmed. So if we say that this material world is the reflection of the spiritual world and say that this material world exists, that means the spiritual reality is 100% existing. So that's and to prove that there is no spiritual world and there is no variety in the spiritual world is not a proper conclusion. So an analogy is given in the Vedic philosophies. They say that varieties of the varieties within our vision are false. Just as a rope, when we touch a rope in a dark room, we may mistake it to be snake. So, however, when rope is a reality independently and the snake is also a reality independently. There is a rope and there is a snake. But mistaking the rope to be a snake is a false. Rope and the snake are not in themselves false. So, similarly, the spiritual world and the material world in themselves are true. However, the equating the spiritual world to the material world or material world to the spiritual world is not correct. So that is being explained. So how this difference will be revealed to us? When we have proper knowledge of objects. So when we switch on the light in the dark room, so for which we have feared touching something for which we have feared that to be a snake, that actually is revealed to be a rope. So when we touch a rope in a dark room and we think that it is a snake, that is actually illusion. Why? Because we don't have real knowledge of the thing which we are touching. But as soon as the light of knowledge is bestowed upon us, the illusion is dissipated, we can understand things as they are. So we may have to fear a snake if it is a real snake, but we don't have to fear a rope thinking it to be a snake. So similarly, the knowledge aspect will actually help us to understand the things as they are, and we will come over the fear of the perceived existence of something else. So this is what is being explained here. So the Mayavadis say that this world is false. Yes, actually the world is not false. The conception of this world is false. The gross material elements, the spiritual world and the jivas all are real. However, when this gross material world undergoes transformation, when the gross material elements undergo transformations and they become forms here, to mistake these forms to be the actual forms in the spiritual world is false. However, the forms exist in the spiritual world and the forms exist in the material world, just as the sun is there and it is reflected in a mirror. So the spiritual world exists, but the material world is existing as a reflection of the spiritual world. This is also true to the sense that the reflection is in there here. To mistake the reflection to be the original object is the false. So in short, the conception of equating the unreality to reality is the incorrect understanding of the truth. So the Mayavadis say that everything of this world which we see here is actually temporary. So that means there is no in the actual reality also there is temporariness. No, in the actual reality there is permanence. We are seeing the transformations of this world, and we are mistaking that the transformations also exist in the spiritual world. That conception is wrong. However, the variety exists in the spiritual world also, and the variety exists in this material world also. To understand something, we have to have a proper prototype of that. So this material world can be a prototype of that. Just as sometimes someone is building a temple or some university or something, so they will have a prototype model of their their project, and they will show it to some people who are coming as to what they are doing. However, the prototype in itself does not become the project itself. The project is there separately, which is the actual project, and there is a prototype of the project which would give a hint of what is the actual project. So to mistake the prototype to be the original project or the model is to be wrong conception. So that is what is being described here. Kshityadinam ihardhanam chaya na katamapihi na sanghato vikaropi na pruthananvito mrisha. In this world, there are 5 elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether. But the body is not a reflection of them, nor a combination or transformation of them, because the body and its ingredients are neither distinct nor amalgamated. All such theories are insubstantial. Now they are saying that we are thinking that body is a reflection of the elements. So Prabhupada is making this principle to be understood by one analogy. He's saying that a forest is certainly transformation of earth, but one tree does not depend on another tree. If one is cut down, this does not mean that the others are cut down. So every tree exists independently in the forest. Therefore, the forest is neither a combination of trees nor a transformation of trees. So Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita, Maya tadam idam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina matsthani sarva bhutani nacha aham teshvavasthitaha. So Krishna is pervading the entire world in his unmanifested form. Yet, when he is pervading in this form, that does not mean he is absent from the spiritual world. And if he is pervading in this material world, does not mean also that he is actually existing in the spiritual world. He is simultaneously existing in the spiritual world and the material world, both. So that is the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Lord. So to say that either this world is disconnected with the spiritual world to the Supreme Lord, or is actually equal to the Supreme Lord, is both wrong. Both the things are wrong. So because this is the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Lord, he will exist simultaneously in both places. So this world and this world is directly simultaneously connected and disconnected with the Supreme Lord. Similarly, the ingredients which we see here, the earth, water, fire, air, ether, the ingredients are permanent. They exist eternally. And the soul exists eternally. The Supreme Lord exists eternally. But the manifestation, that material elements, they get transformed at a certain point of time, and then they get dismantled at a certain point of time. So that is the temporariness. That temporariness is which is actually the false thing. So the manifestation may be there. It may be manifested and unmanifested. However, the elements, the Lord and the spiritual world, they are all fully eternal. So we should have a proper conception of the things in reality. We should not have an improper conception of the reality. To reject everything of this world as different from the Supreme Lord is not correct. And to equate everything of this world to be equal to the Supreme Lord is also not correct. To understand that this is the reflection of the original is actually the proper conception. And so we should understand that the things here are giving us a hint of the spiritual world, where we actually were existing, and we should go back there. So this is what we have to understand from these kind of analogies. So Prabhupada is saying that actually the Lord, he is giving one more example. People think that when they are, some of the people, they say that when we go to the temples, the deity of the Lord would be made of, earth, or it can be made of wood, or it can be made of stone or metal or so. So since we see that in this world, these elements, the forms made of such elements are temporary, to say that the Lord also is temporary is incorrect. When we worship the deity of the Lord in the temple, the deity appears to be stone or wood. Now, because the Supreme Lord does not have a material body, he is not stone or wood. Yet, the stone and wood are not different from him. Thus, by worshipping the stone or wood, we get no result. But when the stone and wood are represented in the original Lord's original form, by worshipping the deity, we get the desired result. So this is supported by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy, Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. So where the Lord, if he is powerful in, if he is to be called as God, to say that the Lord is not existing somewhere is wrong, and to say that the Lord is, since he is existing everywhere, he does not have his original supreme form is also wrong. So this is the inconceivable supreme Lord's power. So this is called Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. So the Lord simultaneously exists and not exist in this world, and but his permanent residence is in the spiritual world. Yeah, that is the proper conception. Dhatavo avayavitvacha tanmatra avayavair vina nasyurhi asati avayavini asan avayavo antatah dhatavo avayavitvacha tanmatra avayavair vina nasyurhi asati avayavini asan avayavo antatah. So like a lip twister. So it's saying because the body is formed of 5 elements, it cannot exist without the subtle sense objects. Therefore, since the body is false, the sense objects are also naturally false or temporary. What did they say in the previous verse? They talked about the reflection, and then they talked about how the body is not a reflection of the 5 elements nor a combination or transformation of them, because the body and ingredients are neither distinct nor amalgamated, means combined. All such theories are insubstantial. Now they are saying because the body is formed of these 5 elements, which we thought that they are neither separate nor in concertedness with the 5 elements, it cannot exist without the subtle sense objects, that is the tanmatras, that is the objects. Therefore, since the body is false, the sense objects are also naturally false or temporary. Syat sadrisaya brahmastvat vikalpe sati vastunah jagrat swapau yatha swapne tatha vidhi nishedhata. When a substance and its parts are separated, the acceptance of similarity between one and the other is called illusion. Now, while dreaming, an analogy is given. While dreaming, one creates a separation between the existences called wakefulness and sleep. It is in such state of mind that the regulative principles of scriptures, consisting of injunctions and prohibitions, are recommended. Now, we will deal with the parts of the translations individually. Now, it's saying that when a body and its parts are separated, the acceptance of similarity between one another is called illusion. Now, how to understand this? When a substance and its parts are separated, the acceptance of similarity between one and other is called illusion. Now, if a machine is there, so we have actually dismantled the machine. To call the dismantled parts of the machine to be the machine is incorrect. So the machine exists as a combination of those dismantled parts, used to exist as a combination of assembly of those individual parts is actually a reality, but when the elements of the machine, when the different parts of the machine are separated from the separated, to call the separated parts as a machine is also a wrong conception. That is illusion. So similarly, when a substance and its parts are separated, the acceptance of similarity between one and other is called illusion. So to think that the gross elements in themselves are body is not correct. That is illusion. While dreaming, one creates a separation between the existences called wakefulness and sleep. It is in such a state of mind that regulative principles of scriptures consisting of injunctions and prohibitions are actually recommended. Now, while dreaming, we create so many bodies. So these bodies are not actually the original bodies. So they actually exist during the duration of the sleep only. So when one is awake, there is a different conception of the body, and when one is sleeping, there is a different conception of the body. When one is dreaming, when one is sleeping, dreaming, Jagrat Swapo. So when one is sleeping in the dreams, he has a dream body, but the dream body is not a original body. So the original body is also true, and the dream body is also true for certain amount of time of the duration of the dream. However, to equate both of them is not proper. So as long as the mind does not understand this, and it mistakes both the bodies to be actually equal, till that time one has to follow the scriptural injunctions consisting of injunctions and prohibitions. Do's and don'ts are recommended. So when one actually gets the transcendentally enlightened, then one actually becomes crosses this stage of bodily concept of life, mistaking one's body to be the soul. For him, there is no scriptural injunctions applicable. For a sadhu, for a transcendentalist who has risen above the bodily concept of life, for him there are no injunctions, do's and don'ts. He's actually crossed this level. He is on a higher platform of Atma. He actually sees everything as including himself as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, as a Satchit Ananda Vigraha. The Panditaha Samadarshinaha. He said Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Sunicheva Swapakecha Pandita Samadarshinaha. He sees with equal vision a dog eater, a scholar, and an elephant and a cow. Everything in this world is a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So he connects everything of this world to the Supreme Lord. So for him, there is no rules and regulations applicable. So one has to actually rise to the platform of connecting everything of this world to the Supreme Lord and the spiritual world. So Krishna is also saying in the Bhagavad Gita of a similar concept from chapter in the chapter 8 and from verse number 19 to 21. He is saying that this material world, this Prakriti, will get time and again it will be created, and again it will be annihilated. They are helplessly dissolved. Yet there is another nature which is eternal and transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. So this material world has two phases, which is manifest and unmanifest. When the elements come together, there is a construction, like the cement, the sand, the stones, the gravel, everything made out of it. When the elements are combined together, there is a building. So when there is an earthquake, everything is dismantled. So there is a temporariness of existence in this material world. However, the spiritual world does not have destruction. So everything exists temporarily. So there is a building in this, there is a palace in this world, there is a palace in the spiritual world also. So, but the palace in this material world is temporary. The palace in the spiritual world is permanent. There is a tree in this material world and there is a tree in the spiritual world also. However, the tree in this material world will have a certain amount of duration of life. And the tree in the spiritual world is eternally existing. Similarly, the people here may live for some time and they die after that. But in the spiritual world, there is no concept of death. However, in the spiritual world also, living beings exist. So, there is a similarity, but there is no equation. So, the similarity does not guarantee the equality. So, there is a dream body and there is a real body. So, to equate the dream body to the real body is false. However, both exist at different phases of time. So in actuality, when we are awake, that is the true existence of the body. And in sleep, there is a dream body, which is also real to that particular amount of time only. As soon as we get waken up, the dream body is vanished. However, there is a reflection. Since we have a conception of a body when we are awake, the same conception, similar type of body is presented in the dreams. So that is the understanding. Bhava, now they are talking about three Advaitas here, non-duality. Now we were discussing about the non-duality in the previous past few verses. So there are different types of oneness which are discussed in the Vedas. So that is in the scriptures. That is Narada Muni is talking about them now. Bhavadvaitam, Kriyadvaitam, Dravyadvaitam, Tathatmanaha, Vartayan, Swanubhuteha, Triyan Swapnan, Dhunute Munihi. After considering the oneness of existence, activity and paraphernalia, and after realizing the self to be different from all the actions and reactions, the mental speculator Muni, according to his own realization, gives up the three states of wakefulness, dream, and sleep. Now, when a Muni, that means who is trying to understand this world through his speculation. So, when he understands Bhavadvaita, Bhavadvaita means oneness in conception of life, one's conception of life. There is Kriyadvaita, so that means oneness in activities, and Dravyadvaita, that is oneness in different paraphernalia. So, when one understands these three concepts, this Muni, then he gives up the three states of wakefulness, dreaming, and sleep. So wakefulness is considered to be the first state, and dreaming is supposed to be the second state. And there is another state which is called sleep, where we don't have dreams. So that is another state. So when one understands the Bhavadvaita, Kriyadvaita, and Dravyadvaita, he will give up the three states of wakefulness, dream, and sleep. Now, what understanding has to do with wakefulness, dream, and sleep? Wakefulness presents us with the reality, which a tangible reality which we actually can understand. Dreaming, as we have discussed, is a state. There is a concept of the original reality, and in the sleep there is no conception of the reality, no conception of anything only. There is a stillness there. So in the world also these three states exist. So these three states will be explained further verses also. What is Dravyadvaita, what is Kriyadvaita, and what is Bhavadvaita. Karyakarana vastvaikkya darshanam pata tanuvat tantuvat avastutvat vikalpasya bhavadvaitam taduchyate. What is Bhavadvaita? When one understands that the result and the cause are one, and that duality is ultimately unreal, like the idea that the threads of a cloth are different from the cloth itself, one reaches the conception of oneness called Bhavadvaita. So it's saying that what is the cloth made of? The cloth is made of the thread. But can we call the thread as a cloth? No. Thread is different, cloth is different. Cloth is made of thread, but thread is different. So similarly, to say that material world, this material world can be considered to be thread, and the spiritual world can be understood to be cloth. So to consider the cloth to be the thread is wrong. So there is a result and there is a cause. So the result is not equal to the cause. So this is called a conception of Bhavadvaita. When one understands this fact, that is called Bhavadvaita. Yadi brahmani pare sakshat sarva karma samarpanam manovak tanubhi partha kriyadvaitam taduchyate. Then, what is Kriyadvaita? Oneness in activities. Yadi Brahmane Pare Sakshat. When all the activities, when all the activities one performs with what? Mano Vaktanu Bhip. So with the mind, the words, and the words are what we do with that? Sakshat Sarva Karma Samarpanam Pare. So when we actually dedicate all the activities which we do with our mind, words, and body to the Pare, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is called Kriyadvaita, oneness in the activities. So we talked about Bhavadvaita to consider that everything is actually connected simultaneously to the Supreme Lord and not to the Supreme Lord. To understand that the world is connected to the Supreme Lord also and not connected is Bhavadvaita. And one actually implements that in one's activities, that in a way that whatever he does in this world, when he connects those activities with the Supreme Lord, that is called Kriyadvaita. And Atmajaya Sutadinam Anyesham Sarvadehinam Yatsardhakamayoraikyam Dravyadvaitam Taduchyate. When the ultimate goal and interests of one's self, one's wife, one's children, one's relatives, and all other embodied living beings is one, this is called Dravyadvaita, or oneness of interest. Now, all the personalities, what we have discussed so far, we were discussing about the interest. So, first of all, we have discussed about Bhavadvaita, where we understand that the ingredients are simultaneously different and non-different from the Lord. And then we have discussed about Kriyadvaita, the activities we have to actually connect with the Supreme Lord. So that is called Kriyadvaita. And here we are talking about the intention or the interest with which we perform such activities. when that is in alignment with the interest of the Supreme Lord, that is called Dravyadvaita. So, when the ultimate goal and interest of one's self, one's wife, one's children, one's relatives, and all other embodied living beings is one, this is called Dravyadvaita or oneness of interest. So, here an example of a devotee is given. So, husband is there, his goal is to please the Supreme Lord. The wife is there, he is assisting the servant, he is assisting her husband. What is the interest? To please the Supreme Lord through pleasing her husband. Now, there is a son here. The son is also doing some activity. What? He is trying to please both of them, his mother and father. So, by pleasing the mother and father, he is actually pleasing the Supreme Lord. This is called oneness in interest. So, when one understands this world in totality and not separate each and everything from this world as separate from the Supreme Lord, this is the actual conception of life. Now, there are demigods also. So, when one understands that the demigods are actually parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, and even when I am trying to please any one of them is actually pleasing the Supreme Lord, and when the demigods themselves are actually pleasing the Supreme Lord, the interest of the worshipper, the interest of their authority and the supreme authority is actually the same. So this is called oneness in interest here. So there is a oneness in the world, the matter which we see, that is called Bhavadvaita. The ingredients, they are actually the which we see, the world we see is actually connected and not connected with the Supreme Lord. That is actually connected. We are talking about oneness. The world is connected with the Supreme Lord. And there is a oneness in, there is a oneness in the activities which we do, and there is a oneness in the intention with the with our thoughts we do. That is actually the oneness also. Yadyasya vani siddham syat ena yatra yato nrupa satene heta karyani naro nanyer anapadi. In normal conditions, in absence of danger, O king, a man should perform his prescribed activities according to his status of life, with the things, endeavors, process, and the living place that are not forbidden for him and not by any other means. Now, he is actually switching on to another topic which is called Apadharma. Why he is switching? So, because one has to actually act in this world. So, when one actually connects all the activities which one does in this world with the Supreme Lord in different walks of life, so that is actually oneness. So, he is saying that there are different instructions which are given to different classes of people, like the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaisyas, and the Sudras. Also the brahmacharis, the grahasthas, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis. So everything everyone and everything has to actually be directed towards pleasing the Supreme Lord. Atah kumbi dvijasreshta varnashrama vibhagasah sanushtitasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. So the center of all the activities, the center of all the worlds, the center of all interest is the Supreme Lord, who is the to be achieved. And we have to, with all our activities, we have to please him. So while performing these duties in this world, one has to keep this conception in mind, that Haritoshanam concept, the pleasing the Supreme Lord, is to be the center, na anyairapadi, and not otherwise. So one should actually, with his occupational duties, as far as possible, which are prescribed to him, one should do those duties in connection, in knowledge of the Supreme Lord. अन्यैश्च वेदोक्तैर् वर्तमान स्वकर्मभिः गृहेऽप्यस्य गतिं यायात् राजं तद्भक्तिभान् नरः. So, O king, one should perform his occupational duties according to these instructions, as well as the other instructions given in Vedic literature, just to remain a devotee of the Lord Krishna. Thus, even while at home, one will be able to reach the destination. What is the destination? The Supreme Lord. Yatha yuyam nrupadev yatha hi yuyam nrupadev dustyajat आपद गणादुत्तरात्मनः प्रभो आपद गणादुत्तरतात्मनः प्रभो आत्मनः प्रभो यत्पादपङ्खेरुहसेवया भवान् आहारसे निर्जितदिग्गजः क्रतून्. He's saying, O King Yudhishthira, because of your service to the Supreme Lord, all of you Pandavas defeated the greatest dangers posed by the numerous kings and demigods. By serving the lotus feet of Krishna, you conquered the great enemies who were like elephants, and thus you collected ingredients for sacrifice. By his grace, may you be delivered from material involvement. Now, he's saying that the object of everything, whatever we do, whatever we think, whatever is interest of whatever our interest is, to be the Supreme Lord. And you people are always doing that. And by doing so, you crossed over many dangers in your life. Like Arjuna has actually went into a fight with Lord Shiva also, through which he got Pashupatastra. He went and Bhima killed many great warriors and demons while he was in the forest, and they were actually in the Rajasuya Yajna. Arjuna and other brothers, they were able to conquer so many riches and make the Rajasuya Yajna a success. This was all by the mercy of Lord Krishna and the direction of Lord Krishna. So, by his grace, may you be delivered from this material entanglement also. Now, he is saying that how connection to the Supreme Lord actually elevates one is described here. He is giving his own history. Aham pura bhavam kaschid gandharva upavarhanaihi namnatite mahakalpe gandharvanam susammataha. Saying long ago, pura. Abhavam. So I existed as a Gandharva in the Mahakalpa, or the millennium of Brahma, as a Upavarhana, Namna, Upavarhana, Namna. I existed as Upavarhana, and I was very respected by other Gandharvas. He is not a simple Gandharva. He was a very respected Gandharva, Upavarhana. रूपपेशल माधुर्य सौगंध्य प्रिय दर्शनः स्त्रीणां प्रियतमो नित्यं मत्तस्वपुरलम्पटः. Lampata. He was calling himself as a Lampata, saying, I had a beautiful face and a pleasing, attractive bodily structure. He was so beautiful. He is a Gandharva. And decorated with flower garlands and sandalwood pulp, I was most pleasing to the women of my city. So he was attracted by so many beautiful young women. Thus, I was very bewildered and always feeling lusty desires. एकदा देवसत्रे तु गन्धर्वाप्सरसां गणाः उपहूता हरिगाथोपगायने. There was a satra. There was a sacrifice. During the sacrifice, actually, when there is a yajna, there is a glorification of the Supreme Lord in that yajna. So, Gandharvas are the people who are well known for singing, doing Sankirtana. So, the Gandharvas were invited in that sacrifice to sing about the glories of the Supreme Lord. Once there was a Sankirtana festival to glorify the Supreme Lord in an assembly of whom, this is not an ordinary assembly, it is the assembly of demigods. And for there, the Gandharvas and the Apsarasas were invited to sing and dance. Invited by Prajapatis. So the Prajapatis are higher to Gandharvas. So they invited them to take part in it. Aham cha gayam stadvidvan strivip parivrito gataha Ajnatva Vishwasrijastanme Hedanam Se Purojasa Yahitvam Sutratam Asu Nashtasri Kruta Hedanaha. So he was invited to the festival. I also joined, and he was surrounded by women, and I began musically singing the glories of the demigods. So instead of singing the glories of the Lord, he was singing the glories of the demigods there. Because of this, the Prajapatis, so the great demigods in charge of the affairs of the universe, they cursed me with these words. Because you have committed an offense, may you immediately become a Sudra, devoid of beauty. Now, he was, please trying to appease the demigods for his, by his performance. So the Prajapatis, they thought that this is going on a different track. Why? Because Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. So the Shravanam and Kirtanam, it is directed actually to the Supreme Lord, predominantly, primarily. So he is invited to purpose of Harigayana. He was invited to sing about the Supreme Lord. Now he is singing about the demigods there. So they told that you are misusing your independence. Now suffer for that. So they cursed him. So you are proud of your beauty, you will be devoid of beauty, and you will become the son of a maid servant. You will become a Sudra. They cursed him. Tavadasyam ahe jagne tatrapi brahmavadinam susrushayanu sangena praptoham brahma putratam. But what is the advantage he got? Although I took as a birth as a Sudra from the womb of a maid servant, I engaged in the service of Vaishnavas, who are well versed in Vedic knowledge. Consequently, in this life, I got the opportunity to take birth as a son of Lord Brahma. So we discussed the life history. Narada Muni describes his life history as a son of a maid servant in the initial chapters of Canto 1. So how he was born as a son, he was a son of a maid servant. He came in contact for 4 months during the Chaturmasya with the Bhaktivedantas. Because of their association, by eating the remnants of the Mahabhagavatas and hearing from them on transcendental knowledge, although he was a child, he was given complete knowledge, complete favor upon him, because of which he, even though as a child, he could transcend the bodily concept of life, and he went to forest to perform tapasya, and he quit his life. And even before that, the Lord himself appeared before him, and in his transcendental vision, and then he gave up that body and he became a son of Brahma in the next day of Lord Brahma. So consequently, in this life, I got the opportunity to take birth as a son of Lord Brahma. So from a Gandharva, he became a more than Prajapati and many other people. He became the son of Lord Brahma, Manasaputra. He is into such a great status just because he got connected to the devotees of the Supreme Lord. So that is the power of devotional service. It can save from the greatest danger. Dharmaste grahamediyo varnitah papanashanah grahastho yena padavim anjasanyasinam iyat. The process of chanting the holy name of the Lord is so powerful that by this chanting, even householders, grahasthas, can very easily gain the ultimate result achieved by the persons in renounced order. Maharaj Yudhishthira, I have now explained you that process of religion. So Yudhishthira may be thinking, oh, you are a renunciant and I am a householder. I am attached to my family members, the riches and everything. You are actually renounced. You have nothing to care about other than your devotional service. How I can actually attain the how I can actually attain the Supreme Lord? Narada Muni is encouraging him. So no, not like that. The process of chanting the holy name is so powerful. I was a son of a Sudra, but there is no stopping me because I associated with the Supreme Lord, Supreme Lord's devotees. I chanted the glories of the Supreme Lord and I got perfection. I became son of Lord Brahma. So there is no stopping. But there is no obstacle in this world to execution of devotional service. So you are very much in alignment with the goal. That's what he is encouraging him. Yuyam nriloke bata bhuri bhaga lokam punana manayo bhiyanti esham grahana vasiti sakshat gudam param brahma manushya lingam. Gudam param brahma manushya lingam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, that Param Brahma, he is walking in your house as a human being. You people in this world are the most fortunate people. Bata bhuri bhaga. Lokam punana munayo bhiyanti. That person who actually purifies the entire worlds and who is sought after by the munis for thousands of years and thousands of many lifetimes. That person, Esham Gruhan Avasayati Sakshat, he is directly staying in your house and he is moving here and there as a human being, but he is Gudam Param Brahma. He is a confidential Param Brahma, and he is walking in this in your house like a brother and other relative. This is the fortunate position of you people, and I don't have direct connection with the Supreme Lord as you did. I only got darshan of the Supreme Lord once and he vanished. But you people are constantly saying him how fortunate you are. Savayam Brahma Mahadvimrugya Kaivalya Nirvana Sukhanubhuti Priya Suhridva Kalumatuleya Atmarhaniyo Vidhikrit Guruscha. How wonderful is that? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Param Brahma, Krishna, who is sought after by great sages for the sake of liberation and transcendental bliss, Kaivalya Nirvana Sukhanubhuti, Ayam Brahma Mahad Vimrugya. He is sought after by great sages, by Mahats. And he is being searched after, Vimrugya, for Kaivalya and Nirvana Sukhanubhuti. He is acting as your Priyat, as your well-wisher, best well-wisher. He is acting as your friend. Yeah. Khalu Matuleya. He is acting like your mama, as a Matuleya means connected to your mother, and Atma Arhaniyo. And he is actually acting like your heart and soul. He is non-different from your heart and soul, and he is acting like a Vidhikrut. He is as like a director, worshipable director, and he is also acting like your guru. So the Lord, he is giving himself to you people in so many capacities. So how fortunate you are. Nayasya sakshat bhavapa padmajadibihi na rupam dhiya vastutayopavarnitam maunena bhaktyopasamena pujitaha prasidatamesha sasatvatam patihi. I am present here. Present here is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose true form cannot be understood even by such great personalities as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Na yasya sakshat bhava padmajadivihi rupam dhiya vastutaya upavarnitam. He cannot be described even by bhava and padmaja. Padmaja is born from lotus. So Lord Brahma, who was born from the lotus, or directly Lord Shiva, they cannot actually, in actuality, vastutaya upavarnitam, they cannot describe his rupa, his form, dhiya, through meditation also. And he is realized by devotees because of their unflinching surrender. So, maunena bhaktya upasamena pujitaha. He is worshipped by the by bhakti and through surrender to the Supreme Lord. May that Supreme Lord, who is the maintainer of his devotees, who is worshipped by mauna, who is worshipped by silence, by devotional service, and by cessation, upasamena, of the material desires, be pleased with us. Prasidatam esha satvatam patihi. May that satvatapati, may that Lord of the devotees, the maintainer of the devotees, be pleased with us. So Narada Muni is actually begging the Supreme Lord here. Now Sukadeva Goswami is concluding. Iti devarshina proktam nishamya bharatarshabha pujayamasa supritaha krishnam cha prema vipalaha. Maharaj Yudhishthir, the best member of Bharata dynasty, thus learned everything from the descriptions of Narada Muni. After hearing these instructions, he felt great pleasure from within his heart, and in great ecstasy, love and affection, he worshipped Lord Krishna. So all the instruction, whatever has been heard, is heard, and to be heard, if that actually concludes us in taking shelter of the Supreme Lord Krishna, that is the success of everything. It is Rupa Goswami writes in the Nectar of Devotion also that Sarve within Nishedasu etayor eva kinkara. What is that? What is that? All the rules and regulations are actually directed about to one and only. What is that? Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So one has to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So this is the end of all instruction. So now Yudhishthir Maharaj has come to this point after hearing elaborate description of the Supreme Lord and his characteristics through the mouth of Narada Muni. And this is the success of the speaker, and this is the success of the hearer. Krishna Partha Upamantrya Pujita Prayayo Munihi Shrutva Krishnam Param Brahma Partha Parama Vismitaha. So being worshipped by Krishna and Maharaj Yudhishthira, Narada Muni bade farewell and went away. Yudhishthira Maharaj, having heard that Krishna, his cousin, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was struck with wonder. Iti dakshayaninam te prithak vamsaha prakirtitaha devasura manushadya loka yatra characharaha. So on all the planets within the universe, loka, the varieties of living entities, manushya, charachara, moving and non-moving, including the demigods and the demons, deva, asura, manushya, the human beings, are all generated from the daughters of Daksha, Dakshayaninam. I have now described them and the different dynasties. Prathak Vamsha Prakirtitaha. I have described them because now the focus changed now here. So there was a discussion between Parikshit and Sukadeva Goswami, and then Sukadeva Goswami cited a conversation between Yudhishthira Maharaj and Narada Muni. Now the focus again shifted after Narada Muni went away. The focus again shifted to the original conversation, that is the discussion between Parikshit and Maharaj. All this was described as a subsidiary topic in describing the progeny of the daughters of Daksha. I will conclude here. Thank you very much for patient hearing and listening. I took so much time, but the concepts here are little subtle and technical. I tried my best to, to make them as easy as possible. However, I feel that I am inadequate to describe these transcendental topics. Neither do I have the qualification, nor do I have the capacity. However, if my endeavor would have pleased you in some way, please, I request you to please pray for me, that I actually gain some bhakti to the lotus feet of my spiritual master and the Vaishnavas and the Supreme Lord. And then I take leave here. So I think we are almost 7. If we have any 1 or 2 questions, we can take. Otherwise, we can close. And I thank the organizers who have actually given me this opportunity to render service to Srimad Bhagavatam. I would have to confess and admit that I have not done justice to this topic as much as expected. However, with my little endeavor, if I would have actually done something, so please pray for me so that I can advance in devotional service and continue pleasing the Vaishnavas. Yeah. Yes.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Wonderful, Prabhuji. Very nice. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Class.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
And for me, the last question. Worship of Narasimha Swami, Vishnu, Venkateshwara is equal to Krishna or not?
Yes, it is.
Is it equal?
Yes, Krishna, Balaji is also in one sense, Balaji is worshipped as Lord Krishna only. But as far as Narasimha Swami is also concerned, he is also incarnation of Vishnu. Yeah. So Krishna is the avatari and he is the Narasimha Swami is the avatara. So
Jagannath Prabhu?
Ha, Prabhu?
Lord Jagannath? Lord Jagannath.
Jagannath is Krishna directly.
Okay. But they are not any.
Jagannath is in a form.
Shiva and Brahma is demigods.
Yeah. They are
not part of Krishna.
They are parts of Krishna. But they are not Krishna themselves. We are also parts of Krishna.
In
We
a
are not
similar way,
Krishna.
Vishnu also is not part of Krishna.
Vishnu
na?
is Krishna directly. Vishnu is an Amsha of Krishna. See, Prabhu, there is Vishnu Tattva. Prabhu, there is Vishnu Tattva, there is Jiva Tattva, and there is Shambhu Tattva, and there is Shakti Tattva. Okay. So, Vishnu, Krishna, all these come under Vishnu Tattva category. And there is a Jiva Tattva, the living entities, who are actually servants of the Lord Vishnu Tattvas. They are Jiva Tattva. And there is another Tattva, Shakti Tattva. The Shakti Tattva is that which actually belongs to the Supreme Lord, like the Radharani, Lakshmi. These are all the Shakti Tattvas. And there is Shiva Tattva, who is in between. So Shiva is neither the Supreme Lord nor a Jiva. Brahma is a Jiva. So a living entity can at the most become Lord Brahma, but he cannot become Lord Shiva. But a living Shiva is simultaneously different and non-different from the Lord also. So when the Lord touches this material world, he will be Shiva. So the Lord does not, Lord is telling that I don't come directly in contact with the material world. So who is will directly come in contact? The Shambhu. In the Mahavishnu, when he is sleeping in the water of the causal ocean, he glances at the material nature and he impregnates the material nature through his glance. So that glance is considered to be Lord Shambhu. And the material nature is called Bhavani, and he is Bhava. So the glance is considered to be the Lord also and not Lord also. The glance is different from him. He is like a separated part from the Supreme Lord.
So that means if I worship Balaji or Vishnu, that is Narayana, or Jagannath, it is equivalent to worshipping Krishna only. So I am in Krishna conscious pathway, right? Am I right that way?
Yeah. Yes.
Correct only?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you all for joining in. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.